Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Lives Transforming Video Training Series. Our series is based on the book Freedom by author Derek Wilder. My name is Brent Henderson. Derek, when my children were small, maybe 3 or 4 years old, there was a really popular movie out that Disney put out called The Lion King. But there was a scene where Scar, who is this evil brother to the good King Mufasa, he starts out, he's about to eat this bird named Zazu. And as he picks Zazu up in his mouth, he says, "Life's not fair, is it? You see, I shall never be king, and you shall never see the light of another day." Well, of course, Mufasa, this great king lion shows up in the nick of time and rescues Zazu from being eaten. But in our lives, that's not always the case. It may seem like we're being devoured by unkind words, maybe from a close friend. Maybe it's the loss of a job, or even something as devastating as a terminal illness. But I guess, Derek, my question is, does God see fair the way that we see fair?
I remember a number of years ago, my daughter Courtney came home and, I got a phone call from my wife the day before the diving sectional championships. Courtney had been spending months of grueling practice leading up to this, and she had a nasty collision with the diving board. At first, they thought maybe it wasn't that bad, but when they took her to the hospital, she had to have a number of stitches, which meant there was no way she was going to be able to dive in the sectional championship. Yeah, she was stunned, laying in the emergency room. The call that I received was from Jenny, her mom, telling me that there was no way she was going to be able to compete. So from Courtney's perspective, months and months have been wasted, all the intensity and dedication, all the repetition and perfecting of her form, and it was really over in just a couple of seconds. And I remember after this time, a couple days later, we were sitting at the counter in my kitchen, and Courtney came up and she was explaining to me that she couldn't believe this happened because it was just a couple days earlier Courtney started praying about her diving, and she never really prayed about her diving before. She couldn't understand why God would do this to her if she was really just starting to pray about it and get connected to God with her diving, and now look at what God did now. So I asked Courtney how she was feeling about everything now, and she said she was just angry, kind of angry at God. I asked her what she was thinking that was causing some of that anger, and she said that it's just, it's not fair that would have happened, and that's causing her to feel angry. And then I asked her, I said, well, out of that, how's the praying going? And she goes, well, I'm not praying anymore. That didn't help me at all. And so she had this thought that many of us think, which is it's just not fair, which makes us angry and sometimes stops the action of praying altogether.
Yeah.
Well, a few days later, the subject was brought up again. In a little less, the rawness had gone away. And she goes, Dad, I think I know why God did that to me. I'm still wondering what exactly God did or didn't do. But I just simply said, well, why do you think that's the case? She said, my diving had become everything to me. I was so anxious and so looking forward to diving, but it really was consuming my whole life. And then I said, well, when things like that become too important to you, what does that make you feel like? And she said that prior to having the accident, I was just very, very anxious, and I was kind of freaking myself out. And I said, but the accident has done what? And she said, well, I guess it's helped me put things in perspective. Mm-hmm. It's helped me realize it isn't everything in my life. And I said, is it possible, Courtney, that God allowed you to hit your head so you could recognize maybe this was becoming too important and was causing you a lot of turmoil? And she said, yeah, that's possible. And then I asked her, I said, is it possible that he loved you so much that he wanted you to learn this lesson? She goes, well, I guess that's possible. So is it possible that God allowed you to hit your head because he loves you so much? She goes, wow, I never really thought of it like that. Mm. I said, but now that you're thinking about it as a possibility, now what's the emotion? And she said, well, there is no anxiety anymore, and there's really no anger.
Yeah, the pressure's kind of off now.
Right. And then she kind of laughingly said, maybe I should pray again.
Derek, there's a question I have for you, and it comes from a verse out of Ecclesiastes. I think it's chapter 8. It says, here's something that happens all the time and makes no sense at all. Good people get what's coming to the wicked, and the bad people get what's coming to the good. I tell you, this makes no sense. It's smoke.
Yeah, that must be the Message version of this particular verse. In the New American Standard Version, it says, chapter 8, verse 14, there is futility which is done on the earth. That is, there are righteous men to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked. On the other hand, there are evil men to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. I say that this too is futility. What you have here in these verses is this challenge that really Courtney was experiencing. Wait, what did I do wrong? I was praying.
Right. I was doing all the right things.
How could something bad happen to me? This doesn't make any sense. God either maybe isn't there, or maybe God is angry with me or something, or maybe he's just not living up to his part of the bargain.
Yeah, what about the kid who was out partying all night the night before and came in, first or second that day?
And this is exactly what Ecclesiastes is saying. How can this be that good people get what's coming to the wicked and bad people get what's coming to the good?
Yeah.
It's not fair. But Courtney learned that day a paradox that is extraordinarily powerful. In Matthew 5, verse 4, it says, "You're blessed when you've lost what's most dear to you." Now, Courtney, in that moment of diving, lost something that she felt like was most dear to her.
Yeah.
But what she realized is when she lost what was most dear, she found something much more precious. When diving, which was consuming her world, was given up, was lost, she found something much more dear, which was peace that comes from giving up the thing outside of us that we so desperately hang on to find meaning. He was teaching her that finding our meaning outside of ourselves just doesn't work. And so in Matthew 5, where it says, you're blessed when you've lost what's most dear to you, because only then can you be embraced by the one, capital O, most dear to you.
Yeah.
And Courtney felt that embrace. So our worldly wisdom suggests that if we keep what's most dear to us, then that is fair. But God's wisdom is when we lose what's most dear to us and brings us closer to Him, that is not just fair, but it's the most loving thing He could do for us.
I've heard it said before that God cares more about our character than He does our comfort.
Yes, and that reminds of just a couple verses. 2 Thessalonians 1:5. All this trouble is a clear sign that God has decided to make you fit for the kingdom.
Yeah, I love that verse.
Or James 1:2. We've said it often here at Lives Transforming. Consider it pure joy when you face many trials of many kinds. Or consider it a sheer gift when tests and challenges come at you from all sides. I remember a pastor calling me up one day, and he was listing all the problems that he was going through. And I said, hey, I'd like you to list those problems for me on that paper. And so he listed them, and he goes, I don't know, there's tons of problems I'm struggling with. And I said, well, you probably think there's 1,000 or whatever, but just try to list them down for me and call me back. And so he did. He listed them. He called me back, and I said, well, how many problems do you have? And he said 8. And so, but you notice, when you're going through challenges, it feels many times like there's 1,000,000, there's 100,000 of them,
yeah.
And usually there's 8. And so then I asked him, I said, okay, now at the top of the page, I want you to make sure you have in big, bold letters the word problems. And so he had his document, big, bold letter, problems at the top, and then he had his 8 problems listed. And I said, now we're going to change it into what James would say. And so I want you to take a big X and X out the word problems. And now I want you to write the word gifts. And now I'd like you to read back through the list. And what I'd really like you to do, and this is an amazing exercise that anybody can do, is after you write those problems down, and then you change the topic to gifts, then go down the list and start asking, okay, how is this a gift? Ask God to reveal, how is this a gift? How is this a gift? Just like Courtney was able to see that this challenge that she experienced was quite an amazing gift from God. I often ask people when we're talking about challenges in a group setting or even in individual coaching sessions, I often ask them, when do you feel most close to God?
When I'm at my bottom.
When you're at your bottom.
Yep.
So why in the world would God not allow you to hit bottom?
Man, just being able to remember that challenges are gifts, that God is doing something inside of me that is changing me from the inside out to make me more like Him. Well, guys, thanks again for coming and being a part of us this week with Lesson 1 on Challenges or Gifts. And I hope you'll come back next time when, again, we're going to talk about challenges or gifts. We'll see you next time.